The afternoon sunlight filtered through the tall windows of the Harrison family's elegant living room, illuminating the grand piano that sat as the centerpiece of the space. Michael Harrison stood in the doorway with his coffee, watching as his assistant sorted through paperwork at the entrance hall table. At 39, Michael had built Harrison Technologies into one of Chicago's most successful software companies, but his greatest pride was his 7-year-old daughter, Emma. Since his wife's death 3 years ago, Emma had become both his purpose and his greatest challenge as he struggled to balance demanding business responsibilities with being the father she needed. Emma had recently expressed interest in learning piano, inspired by a performance at her school. Michael had instructed his assistant to hire the highly recommended Margaret Chen, a renowned piano instructor who typically worked only with advanced students but had agreed to make an exception for the daughter of a major arts foundation donor. What Michael didn't know was that his assistant had accidentally contacted the wrong number from a list of music teachers, reaching instead a woman named Margaret Collins, a struggling single mother who taught basic piano lessons from her small apartment to make ends meet. When the doorbell rang precisely at 4 o'clock, Michael opened it expecting to meet the distinguished 60-year-old professor his assistant had described. Instead, he found himself looking at a young woman in her late 20s, wearing a modest dark blazer over a floral dress, carrying a worn leather music bag and looking slightly nervous. "Mr. Harrison, I'm Margaret Collins," she said, extending her hand professionally. "Thank you so much for this opportunity." Michael felt immediate confusion, but shook her hand politely. "Ms. Collins, I think there may have been some miscommunication. I was expecting Margaret Chen, the instructor from the conservatory." Margaret's face paled as she realized the mistake. "Oh no, I received a call from your office about teaching piano to your daughter Emma. I assumed it was a referral from one of my current students' parents." She began to back away from the door, embarrassment evident in her expression. "I'm so sorry for the confusion. I'll leave immediately and let you contact the correct instructor." Before Michael could respond, Emma appeared at his side, her blonde hair in pigtails and her face bright with excitement at seeing someone new. "Is this my piano teacher, Daddy?" Emma asked, looking up at Margaret with the kind of instant hope that children sometimes felt about certain people. Margaret knelt down to Emma's eye level, her embarrassment temporarily forgotten. "Hi, Emma. My name is Margaret, but you can call me Maggie. I teach piano, but it looks like your daddy was expecting a different teacher today." "But you're here now," Emma said with the straightforward logic of childhood. "Can't you teach me, please?" Michael found himself in an unexpected dilemma. He could see that Margaret Collins was clearly not the distinguished instructor he had planned to hire. But there was something genuine about her interaction with Emma that made him hesitate to simply send her away. "Ms. Collins, perhaps you could stay for a trial lesson," Michael suggested. "If Emma responds well to your teaching style, we could discuss a regular arrangement." Relief and gratitude flooded Margaret's face. "Mr. Harrison, I would be honored. And please, if we're going to be working together, call me Maggie." As Maggie settled at the piano bench with Emma beside her, Michael watched from the doorway, initially planning to observe for just a few minutes before returning to work. But something about the way Maggie engaged with his daughter kept him transfixed. "Emma, before we learn any songs, I want to tell you what I love most about piano," Maggie said, her hands resting gently on the keys. "The piano isn't just an instrument. It's a way of telling stories without words. Every key has a different voice, and when we put them together, we can express feelings that are sometimes too big for regular talking." Emma listened with rapt attention as Maggie played a simple but beautiful melody, her fingers moving with practiced grace despite the modest circumstances that her worn music bag suggested. "That's so pretty," Emma whispered. "Will I be able to play like that?" "Absolutely," Maggie assured her. "But first let me show you something important." Instead of immediately launching into finger positions and technical exercises, Maggie taught Emma to listen to the different tones of individual keys, helping her understand music as an emotional language rather than just a technical skill. Michael found himself drawn into the lesson despite his intention to review work emails. Maggie's approach was completely different from the rigid classical training he had expected. She made learning feel like play, celebration, rather than discipline, while still maintaining clear educational structure. When the hour ended, Emma begged for Maggie to return the next day, wrapping her arms around the young teacher's waist with the kind of instant attachment that surprised even Michael. After Emma reluctantly went to practice writing her name as Michael had requested, he walked Maggie to the door. "Miss Collins, I have to confess I'm impressed by your approach," Michael said. "Emma hasn't shown that kind of enthusiasm about anything since before her mother passed away." Maggie's expression softened with understanding. "Mr. Harrison, I lost my husband 2 years ago in a car accident. I have a 6-year-old son named Tyler, and I know how hard it is to help children. Process that kind of loss while managing your own grief, the shared experience. Created an instant connection that went beyond the teacher-parent relationship Michael had anticipated. I know I'm not the prestigious instructor you intended to. Higher," Maggie continued honestly. "I teach basic lessons from my apartment, and I'm barely making ends meet most months. But I promise you that Emma will receive the same dedication and care that I give to every student, regardless of their family circumstances." Michael made a decision that surprised even himself. "Maggie, I'd like to hire you as Emma's regular piano instructor. Not because of a mistake or confusion, but because you've shown me in 1 hour that you understand what Emma actually needs." Over the following months, Maggie became a regular presence in the Harrison household, arriving 3 times a week to work with Emma. Michael found himself arranging his schedule to be home during the lessons, initially telling himself it was to supervise Emma's education, but gradually acknowledging that he looked forward to the conversations with Maggie that often extended beyond the scheduled lesson time. Maggie shared stories about her son Tyler, her struggles to pay rent on her small apartment, and her determination to give her child a stable life despite their financial challenges. Michael found himself admiring her resilience and the way she maintained optimism despite circumstances that would have defeated many people. One evening, as Maggie was packing her music bag after a particularly successful lesson, Emma tugged on Michael's sleeve. "Daddy, can Miss Maggie and Tyler come have dinner with us? I want to meet her son, and maybe we could be friends like you and Miss Maggie are friends." Maggie looked embarrassed by Emma's directness, but Michael surprised them both by agreeing immediately. "That's an excellent idea. Emma. Maggie, would you and Tyler like to join us for dinner this Saturday? Nothing fancy, just a chance for the kids to meet and for us to have adult conversation that doesn't revolve around work or piano lessons." The dinner became the first of many shared meals, and gradually, the relationship between the two families evolved into something deeper than a business arrangement. Michael discovered that Maggie's perspective on life, shaped by genuine struggle and loss, brought balance to his tendency to approach every problem as something that could be solved with money or professional connections. Maggie found that Michael's success hadn't made him arrogant or out of touch. His genuine interest in her thoughts and experiences, combined with his obvious devotion to Emma, revealed a depth of character that wealth had never diminished. 6 months after the mistake in hiring, Michael made another unexpected decision. He offered Maggie a position developing a music therapy program for children dealing with grief and trauma, backed by funding from his family's foundation. The salary would allow her to stop struggling financially while using her musical gifts to help children who needed exactly the kind of emotional support she had provided Emma. "Michael, this is too much," Maggie protested when he first presented the proposal. "You've already been so generous with Emma's lesson fees." "Maggie, this isn't charity," Michael said firmly. "You have a gift for connecting with children through music, and there are hundreds of kids in this city who need exactly what you've given Emma. I'm not offering you a favor. I'm asking you to build something important that happens to align perfectly with your talents." The music therapy program became a cornerstone of the foundation's work, serving children throughout Chicago who were processing loss, trauma, or difficult transitions. Maggie hired other instructors who shared her philosophy of music as emotional healing rather than just technical skill. More importantly, the professional partnership had evolved into something personal. Michael and Maggie had fallen in love gradually, built on mutual respect, shared values, and the recognition that their families fit together in ways that felt natural rather than forced. Emma and Tyler had become inseparable, and both children thrived under the attention of adults who understood the complexity of blended families built on loss and hope rather than fairy tale romance. On the anniversary of their first meeting, Michael presented Maggie with a gift that brought tears to both their eyes. The deed to a comfortable house in a good school district, purchased not as a romantic gesture but as an investment in the family they were building together. Maggie, a year ago my assistant made a mistake that brought you to my door instead of the teacher I thought I wanted, Michael said as they stood in the empty living room of her new home. That mistake was the best thing that ever happened to both our families. Maggie looked around the space that would give Tyler stability and security she had never been able to provide on her own. Michael, when I knocked on your door that day, I was 3 weeks behind on rent and wondering how I was going to feed my son. You've given me so much more than financial security. You've given me a partner who values what I bring to the world, even when it doesn't come with impressive credentials. The single-father CEO who had accidentally hired the wrong teacher had discovered that sometimes the best things in life come from mistakes, misunderstandings, and the willingness to recognize value that doesn't arrive in the package we expected. And the struggling single mother who had answered the wrong phone call had learned that opportunity often comes disguised as confusion, and that the right person sees your worth even when you arrive at their door by accident. Thank you for listening to this story about finding love and family in unexpected circumstances. If this tale reminded you that some of life's best blessings come from mistakes, and that true worth is measured by character rather than credentials, please like this video, share it with someone who believes in second chances, and subscribe for more stories celebrating the unexpected paths that lead to the relationships we need most. We'd love to hear in the comments about times when a mistake or misunderstanding led to something wonderful in your own life, or when you found connection with someone you never expected to meet. Remember, sometimes the wrong choice turns out to be exactly right, and the people who change our lives often arrive when we were looking for someone completely different.